Hey, Magic fans, welcome back. This is your captain speaking here on Capnclydes MTG. Today, we have more Modern Horizon 3 leaks. We might actually have the rest of the set finally spoiled, leaked, whatever. And if we do, we'll start with the Commander stuff tomorrow. So, without further ado, don't forget to subscribe or not, whatever. Links in the description where you can buy cards from the box opening series. Let's get into it. We got quite a bit to cover. Start off with the reprint of Urza's Incubator. We knew this was in there. Ocelot Pride. We knew this card was in there as well. An interesting card, and actually land cycle itself. We have a Foreboding Landscape. Well, we have a whole set of landscape cards based around 3-color factions. They all tap for a colorless, but you can tap and sack them to get a basic of the 3 colors. Example here is Swamp, Forest, Island. Also, if you don't want to use it as a land, you can cycle it for the 3 mana, which is also kind of cool. Very good for a common card, I'm not going to lie. And it's not just 2. We got all 10. So he got Twisted, Beautiful, Bounded, Seething, Contaminated. 1 for every 3 mana combination, so there's that. Then we have Shilgengar, Sire of Famine. I think we've seen this already. 2 black and 3 for a 6/6 flyer. What could go wrong with that? Sacrifice another creature, create a blood token. If you sacrificed an angel this way, create a number of blood tokens equal to its toughness instead. For a combination of 3 white and black, take your pick of which 3. Sacrifice 6 blood tokens, return each creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield with the finality counter on it. Those creatures are vampires in addition to other types. This is going to be huge in Commander and probably should have been Mythic. It's 5 mana, it's 6/6, it flies, has no other drawbacks. I mean, sweet Jesus, it's good. I mean, not all that great per se in the older formats. However, in Commander and Limited, this is going to be insanely good. Yeah, insanely good. Anyway, next we have the Dreamtide Whale. This is a new one, a blue and 2 for a 7/5, vanishing 2. Whenever a player casts their second spell, each turn proliferate. So, if you guys who don't know, vanishing comes into play with 2 counters on it during every upkeep. You remove a time counter. When the last one's removed, you sacrifice it. So you can lay it on turn 3 as a 7/5. But you better be playing 2 spells every turn to proliferate and put counters on this thing to keep it alive, or it's just going to die. Now, if you can do that, it is a 3 mana 7/5, which is going to be absurd on several levels. This thing's going to be a powerhouse in Limited and maybe even some other formats just because of 3 mana 7/5. I mean, Jesus. But I mean, the whole vanishing thing can make it worse, and it can be killed with most removal spells, so Next, we have the Skittering Prosecutor, or Precursor, excuse me. Red and 2 for this 3/3 Devoid Menace. Whenever you sacrifice a non-token permanent, you get to create an Eldrazi token, so that's kind of cool. I mean, probably best in Limited is a 3 mana 3/3 with Menace. And if you do sacrifice something, you get Eldrazi out of it. Now, you can't sacrifice your Eldrazi tokens to get more tokens. Not how that works. It says non-token permanent. But, still good. Next, we have Foul Strike. And I just want to say this picture. It had me giggling so much when I went to clip this. Just the fact that it looks like he punched the eyeballs out of this bird's head with a ball sack. I'm just gonna say it. Keep it together, Captain. Anyway, a green and 1 for destroy target creature or flying. It has reinforced 2 for a green and 2. You can put 2+1/+some counters on something. Knock the eyeballs out of your head with a ball sack. Anyway, moving on. This is too good. We have Monstrous Vortex, green and 3 enchantment. Whenever you cast a creature spell, power 5 or greater, discover X, where X is that spell's mana value. Very powerful for Commander. Ooh, doggy. Gonna be great and limited too. I mean, honestly, after that, it's not going to see much because people aren't throwing around 5 mana spells in the older formats. It's just they just don't. Now, with that said, there is an argument to be made for playing the elementals that you can evoke into play. They're 5 mana, yada, yada, yada. But again, you can only cast things X, where X is a spell mana's value, so maybe you get another creature that you can... It's a thing. I don't think it's going to be a thing, but we'll see. I mean, it's fine for Commander. Next, we have the Twisted Riddle Maker, because everybody wanted an Eldrazi Sphinx in their life. 8 colorless for a 5/5 flyer. Luckily, it has a merge for a blue waste mana, 1 waste mana, and 5. And as you guys know, you sacrifice a creature, reduces its mana cost. Whenever you cast this spell, tap up the 2 target permanents, put a stun counter on each. Going to be an amazing card for Limited to emerge this guy out early, tap down your opponent with stun counters, and proceed to beat face. So, you know, this is probably going to be pretty good, Limited. Next, we have Solar Transformer. So this thing is pretty something. 2 colorless, enters the battlefield tap. You get 3 energy when it does. Tap for a colorless, tap, pay an energy, get 1 mana of any color. Now, probably not the mana rock most decks are wanting, but if you're playing energy, this is the mana rock you've been looking for. Because you don't have to pay energy to get mana out of it. I mean, it taps for colorless, and to be fair, I mean, maybe you want it for waste mana. Yeah, you never know. Next, we have Territory Color. So this monstrosity is an Eldrazi that is a green and 4 colorless for a 7/5, devoid of reach. Landfall. Whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, look at the top card of your library. If it's a creature card, you may reveal it, put it into your hand. If you don't put that card into your hand, you may put it into the graveyard. I mean, it's fine, I guess. It'll get you through your deck in Limited, maybe even in Commander, but I don't see a whole lot of action for this little fella. You call that little. Bespoken Battle Wagon. This thing's hilarious. Blue and 3 for a 5/6. An artifact that you can tap to get 2 energy. Just tap it. Tappity tap. It's going to make this card very playable. Tap 2 energy to tap a creature. Tap 3 energy, draw a card. Or pay 4 energy to just make it a creature and punch somebody in the face with it. And it crews for 4. This is going to be great in energy deck because it generates energy without a spell. I think this card is going to be very popular. Personal opinion. Next, we have Branching Evolution, a green and 2 enchantment. If 1 or more +1/+1 counters we put on a creature you control, twice that many +1/+1 counters are put on that creature instead. Well, I mean, it's not no hardened scales, that's for sure. Technically, it's better, but it is 3 mana. Now, in a Commander deck with hardened scales, one of everything and one of these, probably going to see a little action. I'm not going to lie. But probably this is not going to be the next doubling season or anything like that. Because also, too, it's only +1/+1 counters. It doesn't really do anything else. Next, we have Titan's Vanguard. Red, green, and 3 for a 5/5 devoid trampler. Whenever you cast this spell and whenever Titan's Vanguard attacks, put a +1/+1 counter on each colorless creature you control. I mean, Boss's Lieutenant's pretty good. I mean, I guess it'd be better if it was a 5/5 and put counters on when you swung, but hey, can you really be picky? Good for Commander and Limited, as far as this thing's going to go. We have a Mythic, Ugin's Binding, a blue and 2 instant with the Void. It's an artifact. Oh, I'm sorry, just an instant, my bad. Return target non-land permanent you don't control to its owner's hands. Whenever you cast a colorless spell with mana value 7 or greater, you may exile the Binding from your graveyard. When you do, return each non-land permanent you don't control to its owner's hand. This thing is insane. This is a bounce spell with a Cyclonic Rift style effect attached to it when you cast something huge. And it comes from the graveyard. And it's an ability you have to counter the trigger because it says whenever you cast this spell, you may exile a Binding from the graveyard, and when you do, return each non-land permanent. So it's not casting it when you do this. It's a triggered ability. And that's, I think, going to make this thing a huge player in Commander. It just seems way too good. Way too good. Now, 7 mana or greater is a stretch. But is doable, especially in Eldrazi decks. And what better way to deal with stuff your opponent does other than with Eldrazi than just making them pick all their shit back up. So, I mean, I hate to say it, but this is probably going to be a $20 card, if not more. And we're going to see it get played a lot, and it's going to suck. So, moving on. Next, we have Hexgold Slith. Not Sith, Slith. White and 1. Oh, it's a creature type. Wow, oh, that's something. When it enters the battlefield, you get 2 energy. Whenever it attacks, you may pay 2 energy. If you do, it gains first strike to end of turn. That seems pretty bad. Whenever it deals combat damage to a player, put a +1/+1 counter on it. That's pretty good. This is a pretty good common. 2/1 for a white and 1. Bit much, but playable and limited. Maybe Commander. I mean, it does generate energy, so it does make it playable in an energy Commander deck. So it does things. Next, we have the Phyrexian Slith. This is just a whole thing, apparently. Black and 1 artifact creature, menace 1/1. Whenever it deals combat damage to a player, put a +1/+1 counter on it. When you do, you may remove a counter from another target, permanent, or opponent. Interesting. So this is one way to take counters away from your opponent, and if you don't or you can't, this thing still gets bigger. And at 2 mana for a 1/1 menace, it's going to be really hard to block this before it gets big enough to be a problem. And when it's big enough to be a problem and you need 2 blockers, now it's really a problem. Don't know how popular it'll be, but expect to see this in any deck in limited play in black, because if they're not playing this and they have one, they need their head examined. And it's probably good enough for Commander, and who knows, this might sneak into some of the older formats. It is only 2 mana, and it can do things. Next, we have another split card. We have Hydroelectric Specimen, a blue and 2 for a 1/4 flasher. When it enters the battlefield, you may change the target of 1 instant sorcery spell with a single target to this target, or make a land come into play. It produces blue, tapped, or pay 3 life to have it untapped. Another good trick card that can target this thing or be a land early game. I like these cards a lot. I think some decks will have anywhere from 1 to 3 of these. 4 is probably a bit much. Unless the card itself is really good, and maybe people sideboard into 4. But this seems okay, and this seems really sweet in Commander. I'm just going to say, like, hey, I'm going to Path to Exile your dude. Well, hey, you're going to Path to Exile this dude, and I'm going to get a land for 3 mana. So, lots of potential here. I'm just going to point that out. Next, we have the Lion Umbra. We have another Umbra, 2 green for this one. It says enchant modified creature, which means you have to have an equipment and aura counters on it or something already. But if it does, it gets +3/+3, has vigilance and reach. Plus, this is an Umbra armor. So if you're already stacking this on something, Lord help whoever you're punching in the face with it. If anything ever said boggles on it, it's this. Because A, Umbra armor, B, +3/+3 and vigilance. Yeah. This and Armadillo Cloak, and it's freaking game on. Anyway, moving on. We have Planar Genesis, a blue and green instant. Look at the top 4 cards of your library. You may put a land card from among them on the battlefield tapped. If you don't, put a card from among them into your hand. Put the rest on the bottom of the library in random order. This is an amazing draw card. I don't want to say this is expressive iteration because it's not. This is damn close to expressive iteration. I mean, you need a land, get a land. You don't need a land, get a card off the top 4 of your deck. It seems absurd. Maybe not as good as expressive iteration. You don't exile a card that you can put into play like a land and put one in your hand, one on the bottom. Yada, yada, yada. But this is good. And if you don't think this is good, they're not reprinting Brainstorm. I don't know what to tell you. They're not doing it. This thing stuff. So, moving on, we have the Depth Defiler, 2 blue and 3 for this 3/5 Devoid. It has kicker of a waste mana. Whenever you cast this spell, you get to choose one if you kick it. You get to choose one when you cast it, both if you kick it. Return target creature to its owner's hand, or target player draws 2 cards, then discards a card. For 6 mana to make a 3/5 and get both these things is insanely good for limited and commander. But probably the only action it's going to see. So, we have Lethal Throwdown, 1 black sorcery, in addition to cost a spell, sacrifice a creature, or sacrifice a modified creature, which is the same thing, because they're both creatures. Anyway. Destroy target creature or planeswalker. If a modified creature is sacrificed, draw a card. Oh, there it is. All right, so it kills anything, but if you manage a modified creature, you can draw a card off of it. I mean, it's fine for limited and whatnot, so yeah, okay. Fangs of Colonia. Green and 1 sorcery. Put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control. Then double the number of +1/+1 counters on each creature that had a +1/+1 counter on it this way. Plus, it has Overload. Wow, I thought this was a fight spell. It's not. It is, I'm going to pump the team and punch you in the face. This is going to be in every token/counter deck, because if you don't overload it, if something has has trample and lots of counters, it's just going to be insane. And if not, you can just overload it and let the sparks fly. Holy cow. Next, we have Reiterating Bolt, red and 1 to do 3 damage target creature or planeswalker. It does have Replicate of pay 3 energy, which means you get to make a copy of the spell for each time you pay 3 energy. Going to be really good. The only drawback to this, A, it's a sorcery. B, you don't get energy for it. So if it's in your opening hand, it is only a 3 damage spell to creatures or planeswalkers and nothing else. So it only eats energy, doesn't give energy, which is probably okay, because the other spell that does this at instant speed, that you can pick the amount of energy you spend, how much damage you do, is really busted. So, whatever. Next, we have Expel the Unworthy. We have a white and 1 sorcery. It kicks for a white and 2. Choose target creature with mana value 3 or less. If the spell was kicked, instead choose target creature, exile the chosen creature, then its controller gains life equal to its mana value. I mean, it's really just a limited spell. It's just removal for limited. Quest for the Necropolis, a 1 black enchantment with landfall. Oh boy, here we go. Whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, put a quest counter on it. For a black and 5, sacrifice Quest for Necropolis. Put target creature card from a graveyard onto the battlefield under your control. This ability costs 1 less to activate for each quest counter on Quest for Necropolis. So if you lay it turn 1, on turn 5 for 1 black, you just get something for free. This is going to be in Reanimator decks. It's just going to happen. Let's just see that now. Because also, if there's only 2 counters on it and it's going to cost you 4 mana, that is also fine. Because now it's a spell on the table and can't be countered like a spell. So, makes it harder to interact with. Lots of potential here with this card. Just going to say that. So, with that said, guys, thanks a lot for watching. I do appreciate it. Until next time, be kind. And as always, I hope to see you crossing the game table. I am tired. I need to go to bed. Whew.